Welcome to Crash Course in Commercial Real Estate. We converted our in-house training program to a podcast to teach you prospecting, negotiation, business planning, and other fundamental skills to become a successful commercial real estate agent. And now, here's your host, Brady Collier.
Welcome back, Commercial Real Estate Training 101, and I've got Shannon and Joe here again. Shannon is being trained, and Joe's been with us. How long have you been with us now, Joe?
4 years.
4 years. He's rocking and rolling in the commercial real estate space. So I've got a short episode of something that I think is really important, and so I wanted to chat about it, and that is working within an office versus working within the bullpen. And you may be out there thinking, why is that important? Because if you've never worked within a bullpen, it's a certain experience. And it's got its pros and it's got its cons. And I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of both the bullpen and the office. And so, Joe, how long have you been working in a bullpen now?
Oh, about 4 years.
4 years, okay. And so what's your previous work experience, Shannon?
In an office,
right.
Private, closed door, private conversations.
For those who've never seen any of our episodes, what did you do before you jumped off the cliff into this commercial real estate space?
Before, I was a counselor at a high school for a long time.
I think you're not going to find commercial real estate too dissimilar from high school counseling. Joe, do you ever feel like you're a counselor?
Yes.
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 Okay. All right. Well, let's jump into the content. When we were remodeling our office, Shannon, I think I told you before, I went back out into the bullpen. Now Grant and I share an office, but when I was in the brokerage business, doing multifamily brokerage for almost a decade, my entire career, I was in a bullpen or in the pool, whatever people want to call it. And it's just a different experience working in the office. So let's start off from your experience in an office heretofore, and now your experience in the bullpen over the last how many days have you been with us?
Yeah. Close to 3 weeks.
Okay, so 21 days. Give me the top few things that you've noticed of those differences.
Well, having phone conversations right now, I'm not very comfortable with having all these conversations with everyone listening. I'm worried about, do I sound ridiculous?
Right.
So I like to go out in the hall still and have a phone call so people don't judge.
Yes. So that's the main thing would probably be the insecurity of how do I sound when other people are listening. And then, Joe, about how long did it take you to realize nobody was listening and nobody cared?
About 6 months, maybe less than that, maybe 3 months, 3 to 6 months, where it just was, I don't care if anybody's listening. I'm just gonna have this conversation. And I think for me, it was because I was really trying to sell a very nasty RV park at the time. And so I didn't care about what it sounded like because I just got to sell this thing and it's going to sound ridiculous. So you just go with it.
Eventually your need for, your competency will increase over time. You'll actually know what you're talking about more and more with each passing week.
That's good.
You should. And your need for efficiency, you're going to have both your monitors there, you're going to have your database and your email. You're going to be taking notes on what your client's saying. And so pacing in the hall, or even the people, new agents a lot of times will go and put themselves in one of our conference rooms, close the door, make all of their calls, but they'll have their laptop. And so we say new agents, go into a conference room if you need to where you can take notes, get used to using the database. So Joe, if you had to say so privacy is obviously the biggest detriment. Right. And then no matter how long you've been at it, you have to have private conversations. Sometimes you're doing a deal with the agent that's sitting in the cubicle or workstation right next to you, and you can't have them listen to your conversation because it would give them a leg up in negotiation. So even if it's your bro or your sis, you got to go and have private conversations elsewhere. So that happens every now and then. So privacy may be the biggest detriment. Joe, what would you say is the biggest advantage to working in this? Clearly, for people, if you don't know, it's way more efficient for the brokerage company. So a lot of brokerage companies across the U.S. have just a huge open environment because the space that would take for one office, you can put 2.5 cubicles. So it's just more efficient. So you can have more agents. And so it's more economical for the company, but I do think there's advantages to it. Joe, what would you say is an advantage?
I think I get some sort of encouragement when I'm hearing people around me on the phones, especially when I hear, we have another guy in our office named Chase. If he's, 2 cubicles down from me and I can hear him just making calls, then it's, oh man, I got to hit the ground running. And so there's this, we kind of spur one another on in that. And it's also one of those cool things when something great happens and you turn around in your chair and you go, yes, and everyone in the bullpen goes, nice. And
because they all actually could hear what you were saying.
They could hear the frustration mounting in my voice and okay, we got that figured out. And you turn around and you go, we have a survey, and everyone goes, great. No one knows what they're talking. Anyway,
Right.
but there's a teamwork aspect to that where you get it. You just sort of draw encouragement, and you draw some sort of push. This push in yourself of, hey, he's making calls or she's making calls, so I'm making calls, and so let's see who can do the most, kind of a thing. But,
Well, I was in a bullpen, and there was seven agents, and I would go drop my kids off at school or whatever, and by the time I hit my desk, there was a few agents that were already dialing, and we call it dialing for dollars. The guy who trained me, he said every time you hit and you hit that last number and it's ringing in your ear, just picture a $20 bill or a $50 bill or whatever coming out of the bottom of that phone, because when you're dialing for dollars, if you make those calls and if you have the skills, your income will be proportionate to the amount of dials you make. So when I would sit there and I'd get there, and I'm a very competitive human being, so I would get into the workstation environment and I'd see all of those people dialing, calling, negotiating. Oh man, I'd get my heart racing. I'd be, I got to get on the phones. They can't be on the phones without me on the phones. And whenever I would get discouraged and I would hear them keep going, or my coworker over there. So I would say also the competitive aspect is great.
Right.
And the camaraderie, to your point, is also great, because when my coworker down the space, whatever you call it there, has a big win, then I'm able to celebrate it with them.
Right.
So it helps with the camaraderie.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I think it motivates, whether you're the kind of person who's motivated by the dollars, or you're motivated by the economic sense, or you're motivated by the teamwork sense of, I want to be part of the team. Like that's kind of more my jam. I want to be, I don't want to be the weak link on the team, and so that's the motivator for me in being in that. And so it's not a negative pressure, but it's kind of this positive pressure of, hey, we're all here to, knock it out. Let's go do it together as one, sort of a thing.
I would also say that in these early days in your career, when you're sitting out there in the bullpen and you're listening, you're going to hear Chase make calls and the way he handles things. And then you're going to hear Joe make calls. And as you hear these guys make their calls, Kyle, you'll hear his door will be open, he'll be making calls. Your learning curve will be, it'll shorten your learning curve substantially, because you're able to hear how other people handle situations, problems, everything that's going on. And that's like free education. So I would say it's also good for learning. So camaraderie, motivation, learning, I'd say those are all advantages to it. Disadvantages is like a fishbowl. It's like life in a fishbowl. And I would take that disadvantage and turn around into an advantage and say, guys who have offices at big firms and they've had seniority, kind of like tenure in the university environment, you go in there and they're just loafing. They're on Facebook. They're playing solitaire. There's no space for that in the in your workstation, because you're living in a fishbowl. If you want to be on solitaire, go home and play solitaire. Yeah. Don't do it at the office, because the office is a place for work. So it also increases the productivity of all of the people when everybody's working at the same time. So I think increased productivity would be a good one.
Yeah, and something that, to your point of not wanting people to listen to what you're saying and not wanting to sound dumb, when I overhear people on the phone, a lot of times what strikes me is when they say or when they sound like they're talking really, really fast because they're nervous. And that is a reminder for me, slow down, be more natural on the phone, just calm yourself, don't, just take your time. No one's in a huge hurry. It's okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. And so that helps me. And then so as I'm doing that, hopefully that helps somebody else who's overhearing that. And so it's this teamwork aspect where we're all building each other just by listening a little bit to each other. But on the other side of it, it's also the knowledge of, the guy next to me doesn't really care what I'm talking about, because he's talking and I'm talking, and he's just listening to kind of go, did you win that one or no? And that's all it is. It's not like we're sitting here judging how did Shannon do on this one call. It's none of that. And
everybody's been where you are.
Everybody
started out there. Everybody started making calls, so everybody knows where you're at. So things have changed a lot working in the that environment from whenever I was a broker. When I was a broker, everybody worked on landlines. There was no Apple Buds or Pods or Joe's noise canceling huge headphones. And
I like the headphones.
Ours was all connected through a landline. So now everybody finds their own little way to do it. But I think you'll find it to be, right now it's a lot of stress. I think you'll love it within a short period of time.
And I would say what I have found as a strength, being new, is what you touched on, productivity. So instead of all this time to come out of your office and find somebody who can help you, I can turn around in my chair and Amanda's right there to help with marketing flyers, and look around, so people just jump on it really quickly and you get things done a lot faster, and I've really liked.
And a little thing just onto that point, it can be tempting, and this is not what you're talking about, but it can be tempting. We've had people in our office that don't really respect the fishbowl. They don't really respect the idea that, hey, this person's on the phone.
Ooh,
Don't go
great point.
busting in there and, hey, can you do this and that? It's like, I'm on the phone. So there's that aspect of, hey, respect the fishbowl and, give people their space. And if their head is in it, let their head be in it, because otherwise you're taking money out from their till kind of a thing.
That's right. And so that's one thing that we're going to talk later on your time management, where you do time blocking, and you're going to say, I'm setting aside whatever your time is, your money time is 10 to noon, or whatever your money time is. You're going to time block, and during that time, you're going to prospect. And so Chase in our office, he says, this is my focus time, prospecting time. And outside his workstation, he actually tapes up a piece of paper that says, I'm prospecting. And that tells everybody, this is like holy time. Don't come into the holy of holies and interrupt what's happening here. It's my prospecting time. Anytime of these 8 hours I'm here, 6 of it's yours, but 2 of it is my uninterrupted prospecting time. And so respecting the fishbowl is, that's really good advice. So,
Okay.
all right.
Cool.
So there's a few minutes for you on working in the bullpen versus working in an office.